Good evening, good evening, good evening out there, and welcome to Mondays Beyond the Mic. Once again, we thank you for being here with us, those that are returning, and our new followers that's coming in. Mondays Beyond the Mic, this is the place where we go beyond surface topics and talk about relationships. We also share our personal relationships and the things we've been through in the hopes that it will inspire and help someone else move forward in a life and push past their pain to purpose. So we thank you again for being here. Once again, we have to put disclaimers out so everyone's opinion will be respected. We will have fun. We will laugh as we normally do, but that's most important. Let's respect one another's opinion and respect each other. So that is the disclaimer. Those are the house rules. Another part of the disclaimer is we are not professionals. We do not claim to be professionals. However, we do invite professionals on the platform. Now, before we get started, we need you to turn in Thursday nights with Lady Dawn B at 7 p.m. Wednesday, tomorrow, on this network, Sheila, Bravo with Sheila, will have Karen from Ghana. That's always an interesting topic. Now, across the street, Pastor Sheila has the Sheila Ingram Network. Right across the street, you can go over and get your whole lot of Jesus. Right here, we all saved and, sanctified. We talk about Jesus, but we create a balance. So if you want the full episode of Jesus, you need to go across the street to the Sheila Ingram Network. Pastor Rosa is on Tuesday mornings at 10 a.m. And then Friday, there is Women of Grace, and they come on at 11 a.m. So again, we thank you. We thank you for being here. As you see, we have a new fresh face, and this is our professional, and he will be joining us. His name is Dr. Sherrod Tomlinson. And before we introduce him, my co-host right over here to my side, I don't know if she's on your left, my right, but wherever she's at, she's going to continue.
Good evening, everyone. And before we go further, I want you to remember to like, click, and share. So tonight, this month, we're dedicating the month of June to men because we want our men to know that we love and appreciate them, but we're specifically targeting dads. We want to, instead of that one day that you're celebrated, we want to celebrate you for the entire month. And we want to lift up those dads who are fathers and really taking care of their children. So, on this topic tonight is the sense of purpose. We will be talking about men teaching and providing a sense of purpose for their child or their children. Harlem Girls will read the following. The book is The Boy's Crisis. In the book, The Boy's Crisis, there is a chapter that talks about filling your son's purpose void, your son as a hero. So at this point, we're going to turn it back over to Coach Pache, and she's going to introduce
Okay.
our speaker.
Okay, so I'm super excited. I'm super excited because this is family here. So I get to read a snippet of his bio. So Dr. Sherrod Tomlinson is one of Americans' emerging professional achievement and performance experts. Whether keynote speaking or facilitating mastermind groups and workshops or coaching clients, audience members report that Sherrod's high energy, refreshing, and original presentation exceed their expectation. Dr. Tomlinson currently serves as the Assistant Vice President of Equity and Inclusion, student belonging at St. John's University, and the pastor of Shallow Baptist Church in Queens. Dr. Tomlinson has completed his doctoral degree in administration and instructional leadership at St. John's University. He earned his master's degree at New School University, majoring in nonprofit management, and he has a bachelor's of arts degree in public administration that he obtained at John Jay College of Criminal Justice in Manhattan. Yay! Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Great to be here with you. I appreciate the opportunity to meet and chat with the both of you and the audience.
Absolutely. So before we get started, we have, we go. So I'll update our commercial break is when we read comments. So when I say we go on a commercial break, we reading comments. So right now we have our faithfuls and we have Antoinette Sanders. Hey, Antoinette. We have Anae. Anae is our beautiful moderator. She helps keeps things in check. We have Reginald Brown. He says, "Hola, ladies." So hello to our faithfuls. Remember to please click, share, and like. Again, as we are talking about a sense of purpose with dads, this month we are coming from the Boy Crisis. I promise you, this is an amazing book for women and men. You learn yourself something in here. It's an amazing book. So before we get started, I'm going to read just a little bit from the chapter, Your Sense of Purpose, and then we'll begin our conversation with Dr. Sherrod. So it says, preparing our sons for sense of purpose for their futures that are not dependent on our need for them to be disposable requires an evolutionary shift in both parenting and schooling. We need warriors, just like we need young women to bear children. So our kids need to see role models of both. Yet we also have the luxury to guide our kids towards choosing their role on life's stage. So, Dr. Sherrod, what do you think about that before we get into the Q&A?
I think it's important for our young men and women to have role models that they can view and believe in. And it first starts at home. I think before we allow social media or anyone outside the house to be influential in our kids' lives, they need to see it at home and modeled at home and have positive behaviors affirmed at home, which then carry over to examples that they follow in other places. Now we know with our society that is not always the case, and there are others who step up and
Okay, a little technical difficulty.
Okay. Yeah.
I think the term war I think the term warriors, we have to be careful of attaching to young men and women right away and understand that there's a process to get to that warrior nature.
That's good. And again, Dr. Sherrod is up here because he is an amazing father. He is a coach. He is a mentor. So he's actively in his son's life and also students. So he has earned the honor to be here, and we are blessed to have him up here. So let's begin.
All right. So first, I want to say we actually attended the same school. I graduated from John Jay as well. Yeah. So the question that I have is, how do you define a sense of purpose, and how do you explain that concept to your son?
Sense of purpose, sense of belonging is on being your authentic self, and the ability to find your path in life. I think oftentimes at young ages, we ask young men and women, well, who do you want to be? And in that who you want to be, sometimes we're chasing after things that are not designed for our path in life. And so the key to ask them is like, where are your gifts, where are your talents, and help them to find discoveries into that. And once you can find discoveries into those paths, then they can develop who they want to be. But sometimes we're asking young men and women to model a path after someone that they don't know the full story of that person. And so, in terms of sense of belonging, I mean, I just sense of belonging, sense of purpose. I define it as, your what is your authentic being?
Okay. Thank
That's
you.
good. You have a question? Because I have a question behind
No.
that. I think you made a valid point when we say we ask kids, children, to follow or put others in the forefront as a role model, but we don't know their history. And I think a lot of that happens via social media.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I do say about social media, and I tell individuals, it's not real. People are putting out there what they want you to see, not giving the full, true, authentic story. What do you think about that?
I mean, even before social media, it's done in kindergarten and first grade classrooms. And so you get an assignment to tell kids, hey, write about who your role model is. And that's one assignment. That's good. But the next assignment is, well, who do you want to be in life? And or what do you want to do in life? And so at a young age, you're unsure about what your path is. And so all you do is reiterate what you've heard or what you've seen. Be a cop, be a firefighter, be a lawyer, be a doctor. And there's so many career paths out here that is really important for us to allow to open up the minds of our young men and women and allow have conversation, ongoing conversation with them and dialogue to help them discover their paths and what they want to be. I spent 8 years on the stock exchange. I'm now 16 years into higher education. No, never did anybody talk to me about either path in life. It was just something I discovered. And at the same time, like, okay, we hear now most of our communities, you can be an athlete, you can be an entertainer. We also know the negative paths of life. We don't have to discuss those, right? But at the baby shower, the baby comes out. He's tall. He's a little thick. It's all that's gonna be the next basketball player. That's gonna be the next football player, right? Never do we earmark kids to be professionals in any fields. We're always looking for what makes money for us or gets us out of the hood quick, not knowing that there are other career paths that are necessary and essential to expose young men and women to be successful in life, right? How to be, and now the big thing is, hey, everybody wants to be a life coach, but a lot of advice that we are taking as adults and kids has no substance behind it. And so how do we make sure that we are filtering the minds of people with substance and not fluff and dissatisfaction?
That's
That's
good.
great.
I was
That's
gonna
good.
say just kind of something that Pache said, with social media. One of the things I think is not necessarily that is all a lie. I think you don't see the process.
Correct.
So, you see like, oh, we made it, but you didn't tell us how you made it. So now people think it's this overnight, and I'm gonna use get rich overnight, not knowing it took you 20 years to arrive at this place and space. And to your point, Dr. Sherrod, talking about school, right? And I think that's so true. Growing up in the inner city, what we see or what they tell us, be a teacher, especially girls, right? Be a teacher, be a nurse. They never told us to be a doctor,
Mhm.
be a nurse, be a school teacher, be all of these other things that you're like, well, I'm not, my mom wanted me to be a K through 12 teacher. I was like, I don't like little kids. I don't want to be there. However, I ended up being a college professor, right? So she had the right profession, just the wrong group. And
Mhm.
why was that? Because in her growing up, she didn't see Black women
Yes.
being college professors. She saw us being school, K through 12 teachers. And that's lovely. And my hat's off to all school teachers. I
Mhm.
just couldn't do it.
Mhm.
So I think that is very key to give options because we all can't sing, we all can't act, and we all can't bounce a ball or throw a ball. So
Mhm.
what are the other options?
And I
That's
think
good.
the important piece to it as well is um, having just real dialogue about what that process is, right? On social media, nobody posts a bad day, right? Very few people post a bad day without, it being some type of pity party crying out to people for sometimes attention and sometimes oversharing, right? But it's important to tell people the real story about your process. Everyone loves the end result. No one loves the process. And you got to
Mhm.
be able to expose people to your process, or else people will never understand what it is to get to a certain place. And so they come into your life and they view you in your winner circle, but they don't know what it took for you to get there, right? They don't know the hours that you spent sacrificing time and effort away from your families. They don't know what it was like for you to be in alone studying or doing different things to get to that place. They don't know what it's like for you to work out and be in the gym or be in different places to get to where you are. They don't forget even that. They don't know the sun, the dark places that you've kind of explored into out of result of trying to elevate yourself. And so it's important that we are transparent in this path in these pathways of success with adults and with our kids to say, hey, this is the real nature of life. And we got to give people real understanding of what life is all about, or else people come in critiquing in a place that they don't understand.
That's good. That is really good. We need a commercial break real quick because our followers, they're chatting with us.
Anae says, let me go update my resume real quick.
That was after reading your bio, Dr. Sherrod.
Reginald Brown said, aloha to the ladies.
Oh.
Bravo with Sheila Network. Welcome, son, aka Dr. Sherrod. The Psalmist, blessings, bravo with Sheila Nation. Let's go.
That is one of our faithfuls.
And the Psalmist, to
That's
your
a good
point,
point.
saying, or go to the military. Yeah, that was really it. It was like, these are the ways, those are the ways out.
Mm-hmm.
And the Gaffey place said, good evening. Good evening.
Good evening. Hey, Vaughn.
And Vaughn, as we could hear you laughing, blessings all. Antoinette said, I agree 100%. Speaking from an educator's perspective, our kids to be exposed to the plethora of fields available to them other than the athletic arena. Being able to tap into your strength is important. Absolutely.
Yep.
The psalmist says, you're speaking real at Dr. Rashad. Sherrod, I said Rashad.
I was like, I don't know who Rashad, but okay, Dr. Rashad coming soon. Come, Dr. Rashad. So let's move right along. So the next question is going to be, what inspired you to focus on teaching your son a sense of purpose?
Oh wow. I think just my own life path. And so, I'm transparent about a lot of my upbringing. And so, I didn't have the worst childhood, right? That's not my story, but there were challenges with the relationship with my dad. And so I wanted to make sure that my son, regardless of relationship in my personal life, that he did not feel the effects of those decisions that were made, right? And so I wanted to make sure that he had a great childhood, had a great life, and that he knows that he can accomplish anything, do anything, and amount to anything. And so for me, it was about access and exposure. Part of my years working on the stock exchange, I watched our counterparts expose their families to any and everything, right? In my athletic experiences, I watched, nepotism happen, right? In front offices and those type of different things in other career fields. And I wanted to make sure that when I became a father, that I gave access and exposure to my son, but also the confidence that he would know that there's nothing he can't accomplish, but he's got to do the work. And so it's really to be able to create a pathway for success for him, but not just also in telling, but also in modeling the behavior. And so for me, it's important to model the behavior. It's important to have real conversations with him about successes, failures, but also the process that it takes to be successful. So where it came from, my passion to, give him a sense of purpose and belonging was really a lot from my own childhood and my life experiences.
That's good. And life experiences, I think, is the best teacher.
Yes, absolutely.
We can go, we
And
can study, we can read, but once you have that life experience, whether good or bad, because
mhm,
sometimes it's really, really bad, sometimes it's
mhm.
really, really dark. But I believe God puts us in those places to glean from them, to learn and grow from them.
Yeah. And I, like I said, one relationship was a little struggling, but I've also had men who stepped into my life and were effective, leaders and mentors for me, in my family and outside of my family. And, even when I went to college, my friend's dad, who was a principal in the Minneapolis school system, he was a great demonstration of what fatherhood looked like. And so having those role models, having those men to look at, and as I say to all my students, youth that I work with, representation matters, right? And even if you listen to them, they're looking for representation. and they're looking for people to model their lives after and to look after. And so I feel, even working in the universities and even in the community, a great sense of responsibility to be that representation for others who may have a father at home or may not. And just because there are two parents at home don't mean that's an engaging and positive atmosphere for students. So prior to being a father, I spent 15 years either in youth sports or youth ministry, right? I spent 10 years a youth pastor at my local church. And what I realized is that brokenness just doesn't come from single parent households. Brokenness can come from a you can be surrounded by the crowd and still be alone. And so the important thing is, how do we provide atmospheres or communities of care for our young men and women to grow up in a positive light and a positive aspect? Because oftentimes we find young men and women who are broken and just looking for somebody to listen to them.
Mm, mm, good stuff.
Uh, Reginald said, I'm going to get it right. Dr. Sherrod, I'm just going there so I don't call you something else, is speaking truth. Anae says that is awesome, to provide avenues of opportunity for your son. Absolutely. The psalmist, if the University of the School of Hard Knocks gave out PhDs, we all will be double doctorate recipients. Laugh out loud.
That's a good point, because I would have one as well. I might have more than double.
Antoinette said that's the truth at the psalmist.
So I think we all can agree that life experiences is the best teacher. So,
And
Dr.
sometimes,
Sand,
even with
okay.
that, and learning from experience, I'm sorry to interject. Sometimes you can learn just from watching others. It doesn't always mean that we have to go through it. I think sometimes we have to look at people's life lessons and learn, but it's got to be a transparency from those individuals. So, and that's why I think, like, having real conversations is important, right? About the highs and the lows. Because even going back to what we're looking to model, oftentimes we're looking to model the success of people with not knowing the traumas of people.
Mm-hmm.
And now, like, especially this year or the past 10 years, we get all these tell-all stories about people, right? And we learn about the hardships of people and our favorites who we loved and adored. But then when we hear like the pain of them, some of us kind of frown our face, not realizing that they had the same issues we got, of drug abuse, broken homes, this, that, the other, right? And so now we've got to be very careful that we don't admire somebody's successes without understanding their struggles, right? And then be
Mm-hmm.
truthful and authentic about the fact that, hey, I've got struggles too. But we're too quick to judge people instead of giving them grace.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes, yes.
I
Grace,
love
grace,
that.
grace.
Grace is definitely necessary. The Gaffey place said, well said, Doc, learning by example versus from the pain.
This is good. And tonight, our topics are coming from the boy crisis. And from this chapter, we're talking about a sense of purpose. And we have Dr. Sherrod here to help us move along in this area. Like I stated before, excellent dad, excellent mentor, always in the youth, in the lives of youth. His hashtag is manifest your dreams. And always positive, always pushing, even myself, my mom, family members, like you'll get a text and it's like, I didn't even think of that. And it's so funny because sometimes I hear a text and I'm like, well, wow, Holy Spirit, I needed to say that. And I text him back and I'm like, hey, that's spot on for today. So very well rounded. And like we said, we like to create a balance. This is a place when women and men, we come on this platform to Shern. I don't know what Shern is. Learn and share from one another to create a balance in this. I just created a People create words all the time. Why I can't create Shern? I don't know what it means. I'll figure it out. But let's move right along. The psalmist says transparency and valuable men, mentors as well. Yes, yes, yes. So, co hosts, pick up the next question.
The next question, can you describe some specific activities or practices you use to teach your son about purpose?
Yeah. So I stated before, like, access and opportunity, right? um, having access to things that are of interest, and to give them opportunity to do that, but also the opportunity to fail in doing things, so that therefore there's learning lessons. I also, it's just a life practice for me. I operate from this framework called facts, right? So there's feedback, right? So we always have conversations about different things. What was the good part, tough part, etc. Um, Accountability. How are we accountable in life and the different things that we do? Um, how we set courageous goals. So what is your goals? What are you trying to do? How are you trying to accomplish it? Uh, Tensions like hardships. I think sometimes we try to hide hardships from um, our kids, youth that we work with, people in general. We don't like to expose our hardships and things of that nature. And I think it's important for us to be able to be honest about those tensions that we face and how do we overcome them. And then thinking about system thinking, like what is the big picture here? And so a lot of this came from all of it. This model came from a book I read called A Challenging Coach. And but in terms of just access and opportunity, that's just from life experience of understanding with the access that I had, the opportunity that I've had, um, it opened my mind to see different things, right? It opened my mind to illuminate me to different pathways and inquiry, right? How do we ask questions? I think sometimes people are like, oh, I don't want to ask questions, right? I think too often we try to like silence kids, right? And so, sometimes in our household is better like be seen and not heard type thing. And that's the
Mhm.
wrong model to kind of take. Now, some conversations, of course, aren't for children, but I think it's important to listen to the inquiry from the minds of kids to understand what they're trying to do. So once I realized that my son had an interest in music from young, like banging on the drums, and then just started banging on the drums. Then his mom and I had him in, music lessons, right? And not really too many of those. He took some, but during COVID, he taught himself how to play the keyboard by himself, right? Now he's in school, he's playing the violin, right? So he plays three instruments. Then on top of that, he does performing arts. So the performing arts thing kind of started like us fooling around, right? And just kind of like, how we do in the house, like those type of things. Then he went to school and started getting involved in that. And so once I saw like those type of things, then I was like, okay, we're going to a Broadway show. And so in the middle of COVID, we went to see Aladdin. Then he got into this Inside Broadway program in the school. Um, then from the Inside Broadway program in the school, he was involved in Broadway Insiders summer camp called Inside Broadway program. And they selected him to be a part of their program for the last 3 years. And even that, right? So he got this big script and he thought, hey, I'm not sure if I'm going to get these lead roles. And so he didn't get in the first one, they played it was Charlie Brown. He didn't get Charlie Brown, but he got Snoopy. And Snoopy ended up having a bigger role than Charlie Brown, and he killed it. The next year, he had they had SpongeBob, and he got the lead role, did an amazing job. And so you got to give them opportunities to fail, right? Not always everything is going to go well, and I think sometimes in parenting these days, I've been coaching basketball for 20 years now. Never before than now do you see so many parents try to hide the hardships from their kids and don't allow them to fail. And so the minute hardships come, they want to move them to another team and all that other type of stuff. And we've got to let people understand how to fail, right? You ain't always going to get it right. You ain't everything you're always going to go right. And sometimes you're going to have those hardships. And also in terms of access and opportunity, I let my son, I take him on the journey with me, right? So whether it is community engagement, he's right there. He was one, maybe 2 years old in meetings with me with city council members. I was bringing him to my job on Fridays when I could, working in education. The community stuff, he's right there. Whether it's church services, he was there. Basketball stuff, he was there. And so the exposure is necessary. Why? Because I don't want to just say, hey, I'm busy. I want you to see why I'm busy, right? So he'll be the first one. We talk every day, of course. And so he'll be like, you still in the office? but I'm talking to him about what I'm doing and why, right? So that therefore he understands. Even during my doctoral process, I went to class every other weekend from Friday to Sunday. Friday nights 5 to 9, Saturday 9 to 3, Sunday 9 to 1. There was weekends I did not have childcare, and guess who was right there in the class with me? And I took him to class, and although I felt bad about it, what I understood is that it was a demonstration of behavior that hopefully one day it will click for him. Not only that anything is possible, but that you can do this too, right? And so when I graduated with my doctorate degree, I didn't feel like I just graduated. I feel like we graduated together because he was there along with me for the journey. And sometimes we don't, it's hard for us to kind of do things like we are kids, etc. And I'm totally grateful for my support system, etc. But I totally understood that the exposure that I was giving him was essential, whether it's museums, whether it is road trips, conversations, all that type of stuff is important to me.
Yes, it is. And how old is Isaiah? Let the people know how old Isaiah is.
He is 11 years old. I'm happy to say he's graduating next Thursday and going off to middle school. Either that or job corps, one or the other.
Right. Quick commercial break before we move on.
Antoinette said, let's go, Snoopy. Yes.
Right.
Robert with Sheila says, Isaiah is amazing, but son takes time with him, showing him the community as well as taking trips with him is called exposure. Absolutely.
There's that word
Antoinette,
again.
exposure is key. Antoinette said, that is awesome that you included your son on the journey.
Yes, and then it also show him that hard work pays off. And I like the fact that you take him with you and you explain, opposed to I'm busy, I'm busy, I'm busy. I'm
Yeah.
busy, but this is why I'm busy. And it gives him an understanding. And again, adding to that sense of purpose. And also showing him that life is bigger than him.
Yep. Yep. And there's sacrifices we got to make. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how do we give back? So I think he was like 5, and we started doing at the end of every year, filling up a bag at the end of every year and taking it to Goodwill or taking it to some charity, giving away toys that, or we're not just going to throw them out, but we're going to give them away. To teach him the value of giving back to the community. Every November, he's been doing a community outreach food bank, food giveaway at a shelter with one of our neighbors from Left Rack City, where I grew up at. So it's important to teach him those different things, and now like it helps him. So now he's in student government in school. He's met the mayor. He was invited by the camp that he was in to come to City Hall when they received the proclamation. And so we went there, met Mayor Adams. And even in that exchange, he said to the mayor, like, hey, I met you before. You were at my school. And the mayor remembered him because they met when he was in student government a few months before, right? And so one thing I also is important to me is, and so many of us as adults have to get better at this. When you walk in a room to speak to people, right? So many of us walk in a room and we will not speak to the people sitting next to us at a table, right? Or we walk in a room and we're silent, or we hide in our phone. For me, I've make it a practice of mine, also help him to do this. So you walk in a room, speak to people, not only firm handshake, but look people in the face, right? Because not only is a level of confidence that you display, it's manners and respect. And I think there's a lot of old school morals and values that we used to practice as a people and as a society that we've gotten away from. And what we do is we hide behind this, and we hide behind headphones, right? And so I keep my earphones in, and nobody's going to talk to me. You ain't even listening to nothing. You're just walking around with headphones. You don't want to be bothered.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we have to
We're
read
at the table.
this comment. He's gonna unfreeze, but right now we have 4.99 from Bravo with Network. This is an amazing show with Bravo. What this means, y'all, is we are monetized now on Bravo, And whoever puts in a super chat or buys a sticker, guess what? Their comments go to the top. So again, thank you at Bravo with Sheila for the $4.99 and keeping this show moving. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now we will go back to the other question. Well, the other comment.
Okay, I don't want to mess up the name. Miss Pitt, I'm a
Just say
believe.
Pitt.
Dear Pitt said Isaiah is going to be a well-rounded young king. Absolutely.
Yes, yes. And that's one of the reasons we have Dr. Sherrod on, just to share for fathers that will come in and tune in later to see and get some tips how they can help in their kids' life. It doesn't even just have to be sons, it can also be daughters. One thing I do like is the fact check. I was like, I need that for
Oh, I
myself.
wrote it down. I wrote it down. And I'm
Yeah,
about
I
to
said,
send
I
my
need that for
son to
myself.
Dr. Sherrod for a boot camp or something.
Yeah, he would be great for him too. So we're gonna move right along. And this question here. So, as a preacher, because we know we always hear about pre-K kids.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's pre-K kid, that's pre-K kid. You hear about a little
Mm-hmm.
kid running around doing everything. They be the baddest kid in the church. Who kid is that, pastors? So it's like, okay. So, as a preacher, how do you balance and encourage your son to find his own purpose within guiding him based on your values and beliefs?
It's no different than every day. Just be yourself, right? I have no expectation of him. Even in my interview, I'll go back to this. So my interview with the church, the question was, how supportive is your family? So I said, ask him. And so, of course, they weren't going to put him in the interview, but we kind of we were texting earlier. Isaiah and I texting earlier today. We road dogs, right? We kind of do everything together. And so in terms of your faith, he's got to get to that place where it's real for him. Can't live my faith. You can't live my walk. My role as the pastor is not your walk, your calling. And I don't let anyone put an expectation on him to be a certain way that they wouldn't want on them. And it's a loving, welcoming church. And he's found his own way. I mean, before we got there, he says, "Oh, Dad, I could be the drummer, right?" And I didn't know the infrastructure at that time. And so I said, "We'll see." He's jumped in. He plays the drums when he can at the church. Then at one point he said, I want to be the drummer. I said, you're 11 years old. I'm not going to make you the full-time drummer at a church at 11. You still have basketball you want to do. You still have school responsibilities you want to do. You still have your performing arts stuff that you want to do. So when you can do it, yes. But I'm not going to put an expectation on him at the age of 11 that is something that takes away from his other areas of his life. But he found his way into the church play. Did a great job with that. We had Youth Sunday this past Sunday. I challenged him. I said, hey, you got to pray over the offering. I don't know what to say, Dad. I said, you just pray over the offering, right? And so it's letting him be himself. And not just for him, all the youth in our churches, we have to let them learn how faith activates for them at the appropriate time. Because what happens is we throw things on them and we give them things before they mature into its being, right? And that's a disservice to these young men and women. And also, we got to stop telling young people, that the only thing they can do is be in church. They got to be able to explore other things in life. And I think we've got to support them in all aspects of their life, or they'll find support somewhere else.
That's good. Well said.
Yeah.
Very well said.
Just to chime in, I can totally understand, as my kids are PK kids. And I remember someone saying something, and I said, my kids are going to do what, let's say if they were 5 at the time, what any 5-year-old is going to do. They don't have a special anointing because they belong to the pastor. Right. They are kids. Right. So I do appreciate that. And seeing them now mature in a way, especially my oldest daughter, seeing her mature and coming into her own, it's just totally, as a sidebar, I know we're celebrating men, just to hear that on Sunday She got filled with the Holy Spirit. I was like, oh my gosh, love it. But in her timing, not trying to force it on her and not trying to do. So I think that's the beauty. Allow them to have the balance and see life as it is. So kudos to you.
Yeah, and kids also, they mock what they see, right? So I think Isaiah was like 4, and I one day I get this video to my phone, and it's him mocking me preaching, and it's probably about the funniest video he's ever made. And there's like several of these that have come along, and so you never know what will happen later on for him. But for me, there's no pressure for him to do those type of things. For me, it's like you got to find your path and just be successful at it.
That's
That's
good.
good.
So
Please click, share, and like the people in the mezzanines, in the balconies, in the bushes. We don't even know who you are. It's free 99, just like that. It's really, really free. I promise you're not going to get a bill after. Go.
all right. So, what role do you believe education and extracurricular activities play in helping your son develop a sense of purpose?
It's all important. It shapes the holistic makeup of who he is. Education, you know, being educated in New York City in the public school charter school system, we got to make sure our kids succeed, right? They don't have to go to Catholic school to be successful, but they've got to have good study habits and those type of things, and those are modeled. So education is a must. I think we have to stop the narrative, and we've got to raise the bar. So we got to stop the narrative of telling our kids, oh, well, 65 or 70, which is barely passing, is good enough. And we got to tell them they could be A and B students, right? The other thing is we've got to help them to understand the value of being excellent students. Also, we have to stop the narrative of, hey, you're 18, you're either going to get a job or get out of my house type conversation. So the educational component is key, right? And we got to get back, like we just have to learn how to support our students, right? Do the extra work, take them on a college tour, take them to see different things. So the education component, and then extracurriculars, it helps them find their way. It helps them realize what they want to do in life. And it is also another motivation to be able to succeed in life. So for me, like I wasn't always the top tier student, but what motivated me was I wanted to play basketball. So I know I needed certain grades in order to play basketball, right? So that was my motivating factor. For him, especially when you raise the standard, right? No kid wants to have bad report cards, those type of things. Nobody wants to fail, but it's how do we get them to succeed and understand uh, success and what's necessary to be successful, and how do we expose them to that and open their minds to different things. So the extracurricular, the education, but it's also you got to make sure that the environment that they're being educated in is one of value, and you're not just saying putting all the onus on the school.
That's a
Thank
good
you.
point. So I believe we can move on if there are no comments. There are no comments. And this next question, you kind of answered it already, so you can elaborate if you want. So the question says, can you share an example of a moment when you saw your son demonstrate a sense of purpose?
Yeah, I think sense of purpose for him, I would say in his, just taking leadership and accountability for things, understanding his purpose, really like the performing arts stuff I believe that he's doing, being willing to explore his different music talents. Even when he, started playing around with the keyboard and during COVID and trying to like watch YouTube and then try to develop his skill set with the keyboard after watching a song, listening to a song on YouTube. But the performing arts, I think, is where he's drilling down on, and his purpose in life of, you know, like one day that could be me type conversations, right? And thinking even about college, right? Like, hey, I want to go to Duke or St. John's. And I'm like, you don't have to go where I work, right? You can go anywhere you want to. but like understanding like the value of education. So all of these things kind of come in full circle at a young age is great to see. But also you could see it in the leadership that he displays with his friends and with his peers, to be able to talk about different things, having conversations, even his ability to engage with adults, in a child manner, right, but a mature manner, to have conversations and dialogues with people, right? That's all a part of purpose and having a confidence within self.
That's good. And it's another, I just want to say real quick, he had what was it, the popcorn fundraiser?
Yep.
So he did the popcorn fundraiser, and after that, you get this video and him standing there just thanking everybody. And oh my gosh, literally a whole little nice little snippet saying thank you for supporting. So I
Mhm.
thought that was so cool, opposed to just a text saying thank you, which normally just like, hey, thank you. He did it himself, and it wasn't his father, and it wasn't his mom doing it. It was literally him standing there thanking everybody for supporting him.
All right. So, next question. How do you incorporate discussions about purpose into your daily life and family routines?
Every morning. So we have this affirmation: I'm smart, I'm intelligent, I can do anything affirmation that we do daily before he goes to school or does something. And so I think it's those positive affirmations, it's scriptures, it's prayer, those type of different um things. So it's in all aspects. And it's just the family structure, having those different support structures that surround them. um and also listening. Like a lot of it is listening. I think our kids go through a lot, and not all of them. It doesn't have to be traumatic, but I think what our young people are experiencing is a lot, right? From the violence in communities, from the stuff that they're exposed to online. I think we kind of have to safeguard those things, and so making sure that we're having just conversations. Like we got to pull up at the table again and have dialogue, right? I think just letting our kids go off in their rooms with phones and devices and kind of watch anything, can't do that. We got to be engaged in what's happening. So I think part of it is just really buckling down and having those solid conversations. And I really learned how to be a better father from actually just engaging with other people's kids. That's
That's
really
good.
what helped me. Is whether it was working in youth ministry or working in my community, just how engaging with other people's children, seeing some of the highlights and lows of their life experiences, but also hearing years later, like, hey, you impacted my life in this way, and taking those things and helped me to learn how to just kind of be a better man, be a better father, and hold myself accountable.
I have a question before you move
Yep.
on. Um, what would you say to a parent, whether it's a father or mother that says, wow, I'm listening to Dr. Sherrod. This is great advice. Um, how do I start? Because, maybe my kid is, I don't know, 13, or maybe my kid is 17, or my kid is 19. And although 19 is an adult, but my child still lives in my home. Where do I start?
Listening. Listen, I think sometimes we do too much talking, and we've got to learn to listen to where their life is and what's happening. And I know, like, it's hard sometimes. I listen to parents that say my kid shuts down, my kid doesn't talk a lot, they're very quiet. Just spending time, and it don't always take money, right? I think sometimes we think like we got to spend a whole lot of money to do things. There's a lot of free things we could do in every state. Even if it's just going to the park and taking a walk or having a meal. Um, just how do we have more dialogue, right? Real dialogue. I think that's where it starts. But also sometimes asking for help, right? Hey, like, sit with other, and I think some, like, I talk to a lot of fathers about this, and I think it's more, I'm kind of working on some stuff with men, to drift into like support circles for men, because we know what the system says about men, and we know what society says. but having safe spaces to have those dialogues and support circles of conversation. Ladies do it a lot, right? Y'all meet up, y'all will go to the get your nails done to have a conversation, y'all get your hair done to have a conversation, y'all gonna go to happy hour, have a whatever it is, right? Ladies gonna get together by all means. Y'all can get together at the church circle or the missionary meeting, whatever it is, the usher meeting. The ladies gonna get together. The brothers got to do a better job. And so it's bouncing ideas off of one another, right? I've got a friend, one of my good friends, about to have a daughter in a few months. We've had several conversations. The borough president of Queens is a good friend of mine. Before his son was born, we had a whole conversation about fathering and parenthood and all that type of stuff. So it's leaning on resources, having those conversations, and just being transparent about those experiences.
That's great. So, co-host, that was my next question. So we don't even have to ask that question. So again, we are coming from the boy crisis. The topics. This is an amazing book. I mean, it doesn't just have to be for men and women, Sharita. It's a lot of good gems in this book. So what we're going to do now, we're going to shift. I have a clip from one of the authors, William Farrell, who wrote this book. So I'm going to play it. I'm going to drop the link, and Dr. Sherrod, you can speak to it. Co-host, you have something to say?
Yes, there are 18 people watching and only 9 likes. Come on, help us out here. Please hit the like.
Literally, just
like
like
that.
that.
We promise it won't hurt.
At all. And it's free. It's free. Now, y'all know we like free stuff. Well, I do. I don't know if y'all going front and act like we talking about being your authentic self. I like free. And it's free. So just please hit the button. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to play this clip. And as the clip is playing, I will drop the link for the men that want to jump on and join in on this
involvement or lack of.
Let me just
Obviously, father involvement or lack of father involvement is no excuse for killing. However, if we want to prevent our boys from having such emotional strife and such loss of constructive role models and such isolation and loneliness and not being able to be discovered by a role model that can be constructive and lead them through life in a way that creates bonding through roughhousing and creates discipline through boundary enforcement. These are the gifts of father involvement that are very helpful for boys not drifting into isolation, loneliness, anger, and alienation, and addiction to either guns or video games and so on. If you have absolutely no possibility of having your son involved with a biological dad, get him involved with a stepdad, but make sure the stepdad is free to be a father-like figure to him. Don't just use the stepdad as a wallet.
So you can take any part of that and jump in on what you want to elaborate on.
Yeah, father involvement is key. Presence is key. Representation is key. I think it's intentional, no matter whether it's a biological father or a bonus parent, how intentional they are with the children. I would warn any parent, right? Be careful who you expose your children to. And I think sometimes when relationships go sour, we're so quick to kind of like jump out there and move on. But when you got kids involved, that's a sensitive subject and a sensitive area. So you got to be careful about how you expose your kids to different things. And I will say to women, right? Your relationship with the father, that is your ex. That is this child's father. And vice versa to the man with the woman. That is your ex. That is that child's mother, right? And so the comments you make, the respect you show is critical. And although the relationship has gone sour, now get it, there may be feelings, of course, involved. There's hurt, there's damage. But a child don't keep a relationship, but the child also should not be victim or pawn to it be as a byproduct of the relationship. And so it's important to listen, okay, you can't be together still, but how do you coexist for the betterment of the child, right? And I get it. Sometimes there's a difficulty to that. But I think it's the mature thing is to get past our feelings as adults because ultimately you laid down with this person. You had a child with this person. So it wasn't always hate there, right? And so how do you get past that to get to a mature place where now you can have mature conversations and dialogues to move forward? And I think that's the critical piece is how do we get to that place of having mature dialogue and doing what's in the best interest of the child, and keeping the child first. Like first things first, keep the child first. But it is the protection of our kids, because we also live in a society where people prey on single parents, and especially single mothers, right? From a sports standpoint, even when women go get their car done, right? Women like, oh, I don't want to go take my car to get done. You take it, get done, because they'll treat you different than the way I'm treated. It's no different than what we see with pedophilia, right? People will sit in parks, they'll look at the behaviors and tendencies, even those women who have their kids in sports, or fathers who have your kids in sports, different for fathers and mothers. As women, you've got to be very careful who's coaching your kids, who's around your children. And there's certain things that, yes, that a certain roughness or toughness that I think we think kids always need, but also we have to help people to be emotionally intelligent in engaging with our kids, and help our kids to be emotionally intelligent and understand, like, we've sometimes created these myths or what a man looks like, or what a woman looks like, right, in this gender identity thing. And what it does is done more damage to us than it's actually benefited us. And so man up, don't cry. Man, how do I man up when I never seen a man? How do I man up and mature when that's the case? And also, women, stop. That is your child. That is not your mate, right? And so too often we put responsibilities on children that don't belong on them in the absence of a parent in a home. And we got to be very careful of that we allow young men and women to grow into who they're called to be, who they're charged to be, etc. And it's not just about putting a bill in their name, right? You know, that used to be the joke, right? We put our credit is struggling. We're gonna put a bill in the kid's name, right?
Right.
And we're not helping them.
Stuff.
We're not helping them to gain good credit. We damaging their credit. But the key is, like, how do we help them to grow? How do we have real dialogue and conversations? And if you don't take nothing away from this tonight, be transparent and have real conversations with your kids. Help them to understand what the checkbook look like. So when you say no, they know the substance that's behind that. Gotta give real life access.
That's good. Welcome, Mike. Welcome, Mike. Mike is one of our faithfuls, Dr. Sherrod. Thank you for being on, Mike. Before Mike, you guys, just want to say something that Dr. Sherrod said that is so key. I raised my daughter as a single mom. And when she hit the age, I want to say 11, 12, she had this thing where I want to go live with my dad. I said, okay. They was like, are you crazy? You're letting her go. I said, that's her father. And that came from me not having mine. So whether it been a bad experience or a good experience, I wanted her to form her own opinion. I've never said a bad word about him. So she changed her mind. She didn't want to go. Even up until this day, he comes and he starts, and I'm like, that's your dad. You still have to respect him, if not for anything. And I explained to her he wasn't given the tools he needed to be a good dad. So you can't expect so much from him right now because he's not there. He doesn't have the capacity to give it to you. And I say that to her and her sister that he had from another woman. So I never got in between that relationship. I wanted her to form her own opinion because it wasn't for me to come in and, again, put my emotions, what he did to me, onto her. So I think that was a valid point that you made. Mike,
even with that though, and again, I hear that a lot, that men were not given the tools, men have not been prepared to be fathers. There's no script for none of us on how to be good mothers. There's no playbook to this, right? There's different resources that we now have to do it. But I think we cannot stay in the excuse of the matter but yet we got to find ways, even with the absence of it, to find ways to heal from the matter. And I think that it is important for us to find ways to kind of connect and gather and find support of ways to, even in the absence of, that's not my crutch because I didn't have, it gives me excuse not to be.
Mm-hmm.
Responsibility doesn't take you having it to step up to the plate. You know your responsibility.
That's
Mike,
good.
good to meet you, man.
Mike.
Brother, I love the way you speak. I love the way you think. The work that you've done with your son, the community, and that you continue to do. So kudos to you. My question was, and I think you answered it early on, but and more so later on, that you are reaching out beyond your community, your immediate community, your family, your surroundings, because we're in a crisis right now. Not everyone has the resources that you have. I don't know what that was. And working in the schools, being an educator, I see young boys come into my class. They value the wrong things, and it's become a crisis. It's become a crisis years ago, and they have Instagram leading them. They have rappers leading them. They have media leading them, and it's scary. It's scary to the point where black men need to take a national stand on directing the narrative, redirecting the narrative in which we live by. So I want to know, what are the steps that you're taking, because you seem to be a great leader in your own right. What are the steps that you are taking to make that happen?
Just trying to lead by example and transparency. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just very honest. Like, hey, I didn't always get it right. Like I've had my own mistakes and failures. So I try to be a transparent and open book and talk from my experience. Because I think that's the best teacher, is to talk from my transparent moments. And then educate on what are positive pathways. So as Pache led earlier, like for me, it's all about positivity, from social media to what I share in text every day. Like for me, talking about haters is a waste of time. Talking about naysayers is a waste of time. Leaning into all the negativity we're surrounded by. We all know the problems. What is the solution to life? What is the solution to the matter? And if we can get to the solution, then we can provide better opportunities. Here's one of the most amazing things that I've realized, and I share with people. When you die, who stands up at the casket and says anything negative about the body laying in that coffin? And so therefore, I choose just not to be negative, because at the end of the day, none of it matters. And so how do we provide communities of care? How do we love on people and mystify these myths that we have of what manhood looks like, right? Like oftentimes when men hug, what do?
Yeah.
And this becomes a barrier. So therefore, I can't even be emotional in my manhood. I got to keep you at an arm's length. So I'm going to hug you, but it's like this, right? So this goes behind the other brother, and this is a block because I can't let you get that close to me, right? And so, and not all men, but a lot of men, we do like this when we hug, right? Or is this, or we assume that being emotional has a homosexual tendency to it, or behavior to it, a trait to it. And so we also got to create atmospheres for men to be emotional or allow to show emotion and to vent, right? Because the problem, you talk about the plight or the crisis. Here's the plight and the crisis. The good man, or the man who everybody admires, now becomes the father of the community.
May I interrupt?
Hmm.
And the narrative is excellent. The narrative is great. But how are you reaching the masses with your message, with your narrative? That's what I really want to know. Because
So,
your
yeah.
knowledge is great. Your what you do is great. But how do we bring a community together and get them on the same narrative? What are you doing to do that? Can you even provide uh, a a blueprint
Yeah, yeah,
for
yeah,
someone else to do that? Can
yeah,
we start something?
yeah.
Let's be in my state. You know what I'm saying? Because I have a bunch of fellas
Yeah.
that really want to get this message out.
Hmm.
And the thing is, we all talk about it, but we don't take the initiative to do it.
So how am I doing it? Right. I lend myself to every opportunity I can. Right. To speak to young people, to be involved in community events, be involved in anywhere I could serve. Like I said, I coach youth sports for 20 years. I've done community work at the same time while still working a full-time job. But I also realized that I've got to do it one life at a time, right? And if I can impact one life at a time, then that's an amazing thing. I work at a university now, or prior to that, I had 5,000 students. Out of that, I interacted as many students as I can during that time. Now I work at a university with over 20,000 students, and for the last 8 years, worked directly with close to 600 to 700 Black and Latino students on a daily, in a semester, in a year's time, right? And so the follow up with them, loving on them, appreciating them, giving them the tools, cognitive tools, and conversations for success in large scale and small platforms. But it's really about making yourself available. Little Dirk just brought 35 students here from Chicago to tour St. John's. I wasn't originally a part of the agenda, but once I found out about it, I was invited to speak to the group. So all of those type of interactions, and also realizing like I'm not too high to reach down, right? And so I still make myself available in the communities. I still make myself available in my old neighborhood. I try to make sure I post as much as I can when it makes sense, not just posting the post, but posting substance on social media. Um, and I'm not worried about people's perception of me, because I even told somebody said to me, "Oh, if you look at your social media page, someone would think you're arrogant." And I was like, "Well, that's your own insecurity, because as for me, I'm trying to post things to inspire others and to help them, right?" And a lot of it, a lot of my friends, my boys will say, "Yo, man, it's great what you're doing with your son. You've inspired me to be better with my own kids." And so I think using social media in a positive way is helpful, and whatever that message is, but also it's how do we make ourselves available. So I go to community meetings, I'm at Borough Hall, I'm in the hood, wherever I gotta be, right? I'm trying to do it to make sure that I can have a positive impact. And if it's traveling to somewhere, let me know, I'll be there.
I'm in New York too.
That's just the kind of person I am, right? I'm gonna go wherever I could go and help. I go back to Minnesota all the time. I was just down in Philly, wherever I could go to be a help, to collaborate with people, because that's the other thing it takes, collaboration. And sometimes we're kind of trying to do things on our own, and really there's a lot of people out here with shared vision. And if we talk about shared vision, we could do a lot more together than we could do apart.
That's what I'm saying. The shared vision. Maybe we could start a Bravo with Sheila for men.
Mm-hmm.
And talk about men's issues. Talk about men being fearless.
Yeah.
Instead of fearful.
And for men is how we spend our time, right? One thing a man's not going to do, I mean, not that ladies are going to do it either, but one thing people are not going to do is allow their time to be wasted. So how do we create positive, structured environments for people to come together and have real takeaways other than just getting together with no substance and no takeaways from it. And so we can't just mobilize without having substance for people to have takeaways. And I think sometimes that's what some of our social circles historically have done. And that's why we see people kind of like isolate themselves versus being engaged.
Right.
So that's all good. That's all good. So I think what you're saying, Dr. Schraub, what I'm hearing you saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is pretty much be about it. Put the footwork in.
Mm-hmm.
Be down, be what you're about. You're talking it, so now be it. And
Yep.
again, to your point, it can be you start with one person. And I know when I can say for me as a visionary and a heart for people, it's like I want to help all the people at one time. And it's like, no, one person at a time. And
Mm-hmm.
you get that one, and guess what? That one will tell somebody else. And those two will go and tell somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And then next, it's like, oh, okay, I have 5, I have 6. But if we just started, and to Mike's point, like he said, they sit there, they plan, they start. I say, Mike, you take charge of that group, and you be the first one, put the boots on the ground and see who follows you.
You heard it first here. Bravo with
Because we also live in a society, let's be honest, where the negative message wins. Right?
Yeah.
If you say, like, for instance, we have more posts about people coming home from jail sometime than we do people graduating and doing positive things in life. Right?
Yeah.
And so we gotta kind of we all say we want better quality of life and we want better, but what grabs our attention more? Is it the positive things that are happening, or is it the negative things? And like, you know, I just think sometimes our mindset, it's got to be a growth mindset where we talk about more mature things than the immature things, right? No knock, but what is the conversation right now? Diddy, for me, that doesn't matter. That doesn't affect my daily living. That's not going to help a young man who's struggling to get out of this situation. So I don't have the conversation about his life and what's happening. What I will have a conversation about is how do we help young people understand the value of education, going to college, enjoying life. That's more of the conversations we need to have. Now we can learn from those things, those current events, but I think sometimes we stay in that conversation and that becomes too much of the energy that we put ourselves into versus the positive things that are happening.
Well, I think this is great. I think one of the things it would be, if I'm talking about whatever the current events or the negative, I don't have to focus on me. I can now project like I would never, this, that, whatever it is in the third, opposed to I need to work on me. There's some work I need to do. And most people I find they don't really like me. Only my they don't like being in isolation with their own thoughts.
Yes.
Because now when I'm by myself, I start to think about me and what I need to work on and what I could be better at. But if I filter all this, and I'm gonna call it junk, then it pushes me away from self introspect. And I can, now externally look at things and criticize and then say, oh, well, my life is not that bad because compared to. And I think that's a part of it. This, and I'll call it the spirit of comparison, opposed to saying we need more collaboration. So to Mike's point, saying, well, hey, because it sounded like what Mike was saying, Dr. Sherrod, he has nominated you as the leader. And since you're in Queens, and he's in, I believe, Long Island, you're not that far. So, he has the brethrens, and they just need the blueprint and figure out what are the steps so that they can be impactful. I mean, I think, I know there've been plenty of schools who have done, or a few schools, having fathers show up for men, for young boys on the first day. And I don't remember where the school was, but it was like 300 men showed up and welcome these boys into school. And that is the model I think we need, well, whether boys or girls, right? Having that positive impact or influence from men, it is crucial. Like I said, you could have grown up with a father or without a father. And there's some people, like, they had a father in the home, but it was just like, it was like not having one because
Yeah.
he was present but absent.
Or you could grow up with two parents and just be pulled in the wrong direction. I've seen that, you know what I'm saying? Where like, hey, two parents, working parents, and you choose the streets because of, you know, how you influence, or you just choose different paths because of your influence. And, you know, we all have a path. We all have decisions that we can make. But Mike, for 99.99, get as many brothers as you can.
For free 99.99.
No, but
Let's
yeah,
go to
I
Once
commercial
we
think
get
break.
to share, we can get this going.
yeah, no, I think it's important for us to kind of create these spaces, and you're seeing it more, right? Dr. Sanders, as you just mentioned, like the schools, the mayor's office, actually, Gracie Mansion. I have a meeting with them sometime this week. They have a new initiative, that event that they're doing this weekend for fathers and sons. So a lot of people are kind of catching on to it. Also, mental health, right? Like the mental health of a man. Um, I've heard in just my own circles over the past couple of years, the amount of suicides that have happened with men has been alarming. And I think we have to listen more when people are talking, not the surface message, but what is the substance underneath it, that people are really expressing. Um, and I think we've got to lean into more support and community groups, which we've they exist, but sometimes the engagement from families has gotten away from. And part of this too is, and I'll say this to parents that are listening: invest in your kids. Stop expecting everything for free, right? If somebody's charging 20, $10 to do something, maybe they're just doing it to hold you accountable for your kid to show up. But I think sometimes, like, oh, we won't pay for this, right? We won't pay for mentoring services or a learning experience for our kids. But what we'll go do is buy them some Dior sneakers, right? That they may not need. And so invest in what's positive to help them. They could do without some of that other stuff. And so we want them to look fly, but where's the substance with the flyness?
That's good. So before we continue, we got a commercial. We got some commercial. We got a commercial break. A couple.
Oh, okay. Again, Pitt, because I don't want to mess it up. Dr. Sherrod definitely walked the walk and is an exemplary example of an amazing leader. And we are charged to be better. Beautiful.
Awesome.
Landon said, yep, most HBCUs allow students to welcome youth and really try to keep them engaged with youth and community.
Oh, Mike. Uh-oh.
Bravo with Sheila says, you're welcome, men, to come in this space on the network and push forward. It is so needed. Just say the word. All right.
Dr. Sherrod, yeah, listen, men, it's open. We talking substance. We talking about moving men forward. And again, like we said, this is what this platform is for, to help create a balance to where men understand women and women understand men. And now
Mhm.
it's expanding to men. This is what I love about it. Men wanting to form their own group to bring healing to one another and really show what manhood looks like. So yeah, I saw it here first from Bravo with Sheila. She said, just say the word.
Jeannie said, good evening. I'm late, but the men welcome the students back to school here in Hartford. That's beautiful.
And our moderator is just greeting everyone. So yes. So this was awesome. This was awesome. This was awesome. Anybody else have anything they want to say? So
I,
we
I
got
would
the
just
comments. Go.
Yeah, I would say one, I love this. I love this particular topic because in celebrating, even throughout this month, where we're talking highlighting men and dads and just being able to say, like I say it often, we love our men, right? We want the best. We want you to succeed because we want to be able to say, look at him. He's a leader. He's a good example. and being able to bring a positive message to those that are watching or those that will watch this as a replay, to be able to say there's somebody that looks like me. And to your point, representation matters, because they need to see that. And sometimes, or oftentimes I should say, women are in the forefront and it's what they see. So then the example, and nothing against us, but the example is to be able to see, what does a man look like? You know, I often say I was blessed because I had my dad, and he was like, show you how to do this, teach you how to do that, which helped me to be a better person. As an example, my mom was great, but there are lessons that I look back now where I thought my father was being super strict.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah. And then as an adult, I'm like, no, my daddy told me you don't do X, Y, and Z. Um, so I love these conversations because it helps us to be better as a community.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're all working together, and so many times in our community, the narrative is that we're working against each other so that we can have a more positive effect. And not even the narrative, the thing that has been filtered throughout, generations, was to keep us apart when we know we're all better together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%.
That. Mm-hmm. Dr.
And I
Sharad, you
think
were saying something?
I think we got to stop looking for the celebrity hero, right? And realize that there's men like Mike, myself, and others who are doing the work. We're looking for the next Malcolm and Martin, and they're everyday heroes who are doing the work. And don't wait till these people become YouTube sensations or social
Mm-hmm.
media sensations to galvanize behind them, but celebrate the men who you have access to in your everyday walk of life who are of substance. Um, because that's where the neighborhood heroes come from. But sometimes we're just looking for the celebrity hero to kind of get us over the hump, right? And Hove ain't doing it, right? He's doing it, not that he's not. Let me not say he's not, but he's doing it in his way, right? We got to stop looking for these celebrities to kind of lead us, right? Who you don't have access to. And many times it is the neighbor, it's the community guy who's doing the work that has real substance, real value, and can really help. And we've got to lean into them and support them in the work that they're doing.
This was so good. I really enjoyed this. June is turning out to be wonderful for the men. This is really good stuff. So, as we do at closing, we go around and we have everyone leave their final comments. I will say, then Mike can go. And we always allow our guests to have the final word. So, after Mike, my co host Elaine will go and say what she needs to say, and Dr. Sherrod will take us out. But before we do that, remember Thursday nights with Lady Dawn B at 7 p.m. This Wednesday, Bravo with Sheila will have Cameron from Ghana on at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Remember, across the street, if you need some Jesus, Pastor Rose is on Tuesday mornings at 10 a.m. And guess what? We got three women of grace. They're seasoned and they talk all Jesus, all Bible. Esther, Deborah, they talk about everything, everything Jesus. You need some Jesus, going across the street to Bravo with Sheila Network, and they are on at 11 a.m. Once again, I have to thank my family for coming on. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Much appreciated. I appreciate you. And the word I have, what I would leave here, is be intentional. Intentionality matters. Be intentional about the steps you want to make going forward with your dreams or whatever that vision looks like. You have to be intentional. Mike?
How come we only get 1 month? Maybe we should have more than one
Mike,
month.
you was doing
Okay, so
so good.
time out. Hold on. See, Dr. Sherrod, you don't know. If you go back and watch the shows,
Right. But
Mike is our faithful. We
if,
have
if
lovely banter. We love Mike. Mike is just an original. Mike is truly his authentic self. That's why we love him. We love when he comes up because he always gives us a different perspective. Sometimes he takes us on a roller coaster, a U-turn, all of that, but it's all in love. We have fun. And again, we value his perspective because it makes us think different and think at things from a different perspective. So, Mike, yes, you have 1 month. HG decided to give the dads 1 month. We don't know what's to come. You saw Bravo with Sheila, right? She says, say the word. So that may be a conversation that needs to be had. But for right now, I need you to say 1 word or 2 words to leave on the platform. Thank you.
3 months.
Three. Go ahead. Go, Mike.
We can all come together, because I think the real crisis lays in what the show was all about, is how the black woman and the black man relate. And that is what we need to repair in order to make our kids and our offspring and the youth respect themselves and respect what they do for themselves. That's it.
And to
Three
your
months.
point, we'll get back to that because the show is about relationships. So women can stop sitting around talking about men having these conversations. We don't know what y'all thinking, so y'all can stop sitting around talking about us, and we don't know what we're thinking. But we took a pause this month again for
Oh no,
dads to highlight you.
great,
So
great.
you cool with that? Okay. Co-host Dr. Sanders.
We love Mike. Um, the word or words that I would leave is activate. I think that's the main thing. Like, we have these great ideas. To Mike's point, is a matter of activating and connecting the dots. And there's so many times that we know someone. I know this is more than one word, but so many times someone we know over here is doing this and you're doing that. But if we can work together and activate, we can see better results. So activate is the word.
Excellent. And once again, thank you all for having me on to the Sheila Bravo Network. Thank you for putting it, allowing us to be on your platform and be able to share all this, and to our amazing host. Thank you. A couple of resources I want to leave with you all. Pick up the book, 10 Powerful Phrases by Richard DeVos. It can help you in your, just dealings with people. 10 Powerful Phrases for Positive People by Richard DeVos. Also, pick up this book. It was a gift to me. It's been a blessing to my life. The Intentional Father by John Tyson. Powerful book for fathers. Great, read for fathers. And I would say access and opportunity, right? Continue to provide access for others. How do we dive into positive opportunities? If I could be a help in any way, feel free to look me up on social media, Instagram, Dr. Sherrod T _T, Twitter, same thing. Social media, Sherrod Tomlinson. Like I said, I work here at St. John's University. So if you have a youth group and you want to bring them to the college for a college tour, want me to come and speak to your young men and women about education, or speak to fathers, reach out to me. Sunday mornings, Shiloh Baptist Church of Jamaica, 11 a.m. Look us up online. We have a website. Feel free to look us up there. But more so, how do we have this real dialogue and conversation? And I will challenge you all. My challenge to each and every one of us this week is to encourage someone, let them know what they mean to you, let them know how they've impacted your life, and you make sure you take care of yourself.
I'm sorry. What is that Instagram again?
So my Instagram is Dr. Sherrod _T.
Okay.
And his church,
AROD _T. The church has an Instagram page, Shiloh Baptist Church of Jamaica. Shiloh Baptist Church is in Jamaica, Queens. We have a sbcjamaica.org. That's our website. We have tons of events coming up. So we're looking to partner with anyone, work with anyone. We're trying to build the community. It ain't about my name with pastoring. It's about the community that we can build.
Thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you all. Don't forget to tune in Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, and on Fridays. And we are out.